Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Carla Thornton, and welcome to Netiquette 101. Before I get started, I wanted to provide a brief introduction about myself. I'm an assistant professor at California Baptist University, and as you, I have had to move many of my classes to remote learning and utilize technologies such as Zoom, WebEx, and Google Classroom. And also, I have a background of having instruction as both a student and as a teacher online. And there's a certain etiquette and rules that should be utilized when you are engaging through technology. And that is what today we'll be talking about in class. My family is from Belize. I'm first generation American. My parents live in Hattieville, and I also have family that lives in the city. And so I'm just so honored to have the opportunity to be involved in this endeavor and provide professional development and education to the teachers in Belize. So bear with me for a second as I share my screen and we get right into the lecture. So let's talk about what is netiquette. 101. So simply, netiquette is a network etiquette. It's the etiquette of cyberspace. Etiquette means the forms required by good breeding or prescribed by authority to be required in social or official life. And so as we engage with people in person, we know that there's an etiquette. There are cultures, there are written and unwritten rules to engagement. Well, cyberspace has the same thing, and that is what we're going to be talking about today. How to create norms and expectations and a culture to your online engagement. So this can be applied to the office meetings that you're now having online. This can be applied to the classroom setting that you're having online. Any type of webinar where your camera and your microphone is turned on, this is what this is going to be applicable to. So the reason why it's very important to engage with netiquette and professionalism and having norm and expectations is because we want to limit the social blunders that might occur in an online setting. You might offend someone without meaning to, right? Or you might misunderstand what others say and take offense when it's not intended. Um, to make matters worse, something about cyberspace where we're not able to see each other in person, we're not able to read body language, we're not able to be in a space where we can ask clarifying questions, potentially leads to conflict. And so by engaging with some of the things that we're going to be talking about today, hopefully it can be prevent that. So let's get into how do we set norms and expectations for the class. So you as the teacher, right, when you have your class or when you are a participant in a webinar or training or class meeting or also the host, it's going to be very important for you to set up front what some of the expectations of your class are or your training session will be. So some expectations and norms that you want to create is everyone should be muted, right? And if there's a capability to raise your hand, so like on Zoom, I can raise my hand to get your attention. What I like to do is in the beginning of the class say, everyone's muted. If you want to engage with me, utilize the chat box, raise your hand, or actually physically raise your hand and wave at me. Sometimes people will have their microphone will have issues or they won't have consistent communication due to the network. And so I always encourage them to write their things down in the chat. And if you see that someone's having a hard time and you can't understand them, you can't hear them, just say, hey, could you go ahead and write what you have to say in the chat? And then you read it out loud to the class or the attendees. And also, sometimes you're going to be in the midst of lecture and you won't have the opportunity to get to everyone's comments in the chat. And so at the end of the class, you're just saying, hey, we might not get to everyone's questions or their comments, and we'll circle back around at a different time. Also, some norms and expectations that you'll want to establish is just getting everyone in the mindset that we're all here learning this new technology, learning this new way of communication is a shared experience, and that not to be hard on themselves or others, right? To be very kind, supportive, and respectful and productive. So these are things that you're going to want to say at the beginning of each session. Now, it might seem pretty redundant, or you might think, hey, we're all adults in the room. If you're in an office meeting, but it doesn't hurt just to lay down some of these guidelines in the beginning. Additionally, if you're going to have class activities, right, or discussions, sometimes you'll have the capability to break out into groups. You'll want to ask everyone to give their full participation and to be engaged in the discussions and the activities, and also provide a way that they can have access to those activities before the class or the training session starts. Some other things that you'll want to do along with the attendees is refrain from opening emails, from texting, from browsing the internet. You'll want to encourage the attendees and yourself to be in a space where they won't experience distraction, right? So this distraction could be your family members, children in the background, people washing dishes. There could be a busy street outside their window. You'll want to be in a place where there will not be any distractions. Avoid sitting on a comfortable couch or a bed because you're going to slouch, right? And so if you can sit at a dining table or some area where you actually have a seat, or if you have to sit on the bed or the couch, just to make sure that you're sitting up as possible, you're not laying down. Now, this might be something like, oh, I have to tell people not to lay down, but it's, you know, some folks don't have a place to go, and so they'll be in their bed. So just encourage them to sit up. You'll want to pay close attention to the chat, and also if there's ever an area where you're having discussion and you see that people are disagreeing, you'll want to validate that disagreement is occurring and provide a space where they can work through that conflict while in the session, right? Because once again, technology does serve as a barrier, and the likelihood that miscommunication can occur does increase. And so if you do see it is happening, you will want to address it right then and there. So I know we're in the midst of COVID-19 and lots of areas have been closed down, right? You have curfew, people aren't able to go out during certain times. And so this part about avoiding being in public spaces might not be relevant now, but the one thing that I do think that's going to happen is that even if when we go back to a norm, it will be a new normal. I do believe wholeheartedly that you will be having more meetings through technology instead of having to go in person. Additionally, you know, there might be some future opportunities to attend training sessions online in a live format. And so you'll just want not to be in a public space. And the reason why is because sometimes the internet is not good in public spaces, and also there's the distraction of people walking around you or cars moving. You want to be in a quiet area. So why is it important to say, I mean, it's a lot. I just said a lot, but why it's very important to establish this in the beginning, and even if you can email the participants out some of these things beforehand, just to give them a heads up so they can get in a space. But I think it's very important at the beginning of every session to go through some of these norms. So when we don't talk about norms, we leave people to guess or assume, or not even think about it, right? And so you'll want to make sure that you are being very clear. And also it just leaves people up to a place, in a position where they think everyone's thinking the same, but you are the one controlling this session, this training. So you need to let them know what your norms are instead of them assuming. Some other tips that I have for you as either the presenter, the attendee, is have good lighting. So like right now, I have my overhead light on. What's really, really great is having natural light, but you do not want a light to come from behind you because then your face will be dark. So it'll be very important so that you can see my face. Be in a quiet area, as I said before. Wear a shirt that you would wear to work or class. Okay, so you should be professionally dressed at the bottom. The pants, you can have on sweatpants or pajama pants. No one sees that, right? But the shirt should be something that you wear to work or class. If you're not talking, always have your phone on mute. Once again, go over norms and expectations. I know I'm saying that a lot, but it's very important. Log on at least 5 minutes beforehand in case you experience any technological issues. Your computer needs to reboot. You're having a hard time finding the password. At least log on 5 minutes beforehand. And if you need to leave the session, turn your video off. There's been lots of times that people have gotten up and you just see their chair, right? You see some movement. If you need to get up and go to the restroom or go talk to your kids real quick to tell them to be quiet, whatever, you should turn the video on. And one thing that I do suggest is uploading a picture to whatever tool you're utilizing so that when you turn your video on, there's at least a picture someone sees of your face, okay? Some tips for you in your session is if your internet is slow or lagging, it keeps shutting down and coming back up, you might want to turn your video off because that does take up a little bit more bandwidth. If you can call into the meeting with your telephone instead of using the internet through your computer, that's another way to get things fast. But at the very least, turn your webcam off, and then that might allow you to have a better communication and consistent communication. If you have earbuds or a headset, wear them, especially if you're going to be in a place where your family, because I mean, we're at home, right? So our kids, our spouses are at home, our extended family members are at home. And so wearing a headset or earbuds will allow you to have a better it will reduce the amount of noise in the background, okay? For not only you when you're talking or for you to hear also. Always check the chat room. And one thing that I like to do is when I'm in the midst of a lecture, sometimes I might, especially if there's good conversation going on in the chat, I might not be able to catch everything. So select someone in the session, whether it's a student, a really responsible student, or one of your colleagues to help you manage the chat, right? Because you might overlook someone's comment. And so if you're going down there and you're realizing you're missing the chat or you're not really paying attention, that person's looking out and saying, hey, someone wrote a question in the chat. So selecting someone to help you manage the chat room. Other reminders, no cursing, right? This is a very professional setting, so you want to not curse. You want to encourage the attendees not to curse. You want to greet everyone, right? So as you log on 5 minutes prior, as people log on, you're greeting them. Hello, so-and-so. Thank you for joining. And you greet each person. And then I like to give people a couple of minutes, at least, if we're starting at 3 o'clock, I'm going to start around 3:03 just to give a couple of people time to join because I don't want to repeat myself. And so as people are joining, be friendly, have positive energy, and greet them. Another one is not using slang. So, as we talk, this is a professional setting, and so not everyone might, once again, that goes back to the likelihood of misunderstandings increasing through this platform, and so removing any type of slang talk will help prevent that. So be very professional in the way you articulate yourself and the way you communicate, because what that's going to do is prevent any type of awkward moments that can occur. So what happens if you end up having an awkward type of moment, right? And these awkward moments could be during discussion, two people start arguing, or someone says something and they thought they were on mute, and you hear what they're saying, and they're talking about someone in the session, in the class, talking about you. It happens to you where, for example, I was in a class and my daughter walked in, and I had put them, they were doing like a 5-minute session, but we were all still very visible, and I thought I had put myself on mute, and I was yelling at my daughter about that she hadn't cleaned her room, and I had already told her 5 times to clean her room, and she still hadn't done it. And so my class heard me fussing at my daughter. And so it's a very awkward moment. And so I just acknowledged it. Oh, I'm so sorry that you heard me talking to my daughter. I have already told her to clean her room a couple times. She hadn't done it. I'll mute myself now. And so sometimes you might have these awkward type of moments and through the technological database of Zoom or Google Classroom. And so you just want to be very upfront about it and just move on. Another awkward thing that could potentially happen is someone wears something inappropriate or offensive. So some suggestions for that is that as soon as that happens, afterwards, you give them a call and you say, hey, you know, this is a professional session. I need you to dress as if you're going to work or class. I know you're at home and you're in your pajamas or you're in your everyday relaxing clothes. And so that boundary between work and life and school and your home life gets blurred. But when you're in these sessions, I need you to dress as if you're going outside. All right. And so some other things that you'll want to do is you'll want to redirect any type of behavior. If anyone breaks any of the norms or expectations, you'll want to just validate it, repeat back to them what they've done, and then revise, remind them of the norm that you set up in the very beginning of the session. Once again, reminding you again that I think it's very important for at least the first 2 minutes of every session to reiterate the norms and expectations. Everyone's on mute. If you have anything to say, please put it in the chat. Make sure that you're staying engaged and not checking your email. If you have to go away from the class or the session, please turn your video off. You're just saying this every time, right? And it's very redundant, but it's very helpful. And then also, once again, remind them in writing about these norms if you can beforehand through an email. So I hope that was very helpful for you. There will be an activity worksheet that you can participate in to think this through a little bit more. Think about what would happen if you had one of these awkward moments occur amongst the participants of your class, and how would you deal with that? This is something that is continuing to grow concerning the resources that are coming out and available to train us how to utilize these online platforms, but also how to engage. And this is a great first step in that. I have complete confidence that you all will have success by establishing these expectations in the classroom or training session, and that you as a professional will be able to experience success by utilizing these methods. Thank you so much. I appreciate, once again, the opportunity to talk to you about Netiquette 101. Take care.